Hey everyone, Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News and a special Broadband Deployment News today. I've got special guest Laurie Ringler from the Arkansas State Broadband Office. Be right back. Hey everyone, thanks again for joining me for Broadband Deployment News, and my special guest today also thanks for joining me, Laurie Ringler. How are you?
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So I know it's very exciting these days to be in the broadband business, and certainly that would be the case for us here, the kind of business we're in, but also for you, being with the broadband office there. And in fact, you've been in the broadband business a long time. I know you were with Waco Video for like over 15 years, and I think part of that was with one of their operating companies was East Arkansas Video, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I spent my formidable years learning all about broadband when at Waco Video. I spent 16 and a half years actually with them, and I worked most of those years there in the corporate office. And then I spent a short time in East Arkansas at the Forest City office, managing the operations out there. So it's definitely an educational experience for me and my family. And but you know, it's gotten me to where I am today. So definitely a valuable experience working for Waco and the cable company. And I actually became the technical expert here in the broadband office, being the one person who knows something about broadband networks and everything. So it's been great. I love working for the state of Arkansas. It's been definitely a different experience, but I've adapted well. And we have a big project coming up this year and next year.
Well, that's certainly, I could see where broadband experience would be absolutely needed for everything that the state's doing right now and trying to figure out, where broadband is needed, how it can be addressed. So that's fantastic that you've got that experience. Also, before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that if you're watching live on YouTube, you can feel free to join in the conversation. Just go ahead and chat there on YouTube. You can ask questions or just chat among yourselves, have your own little conversation there, and I'll certainly bring that up if we got a question in the middle that we can address or at the end. And then also, if you're not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Click the little bell and you'll be notified when I'm live, anytime that I'm live here. If you like the video, go ahead and click the thumbs up button down there on YouTube. And you see Laurie's contact info here. I'll bring this up again as well at the end so that you have that. Everybody's got that. So Laurie, again, you've got the broadband experience. Now you're in this role as, kind of a project manager with the state of Arkansas. So you are busy with those duties now. I know you've been very busy. In fact, you guys just completed a 75 county tour. You went to every county in the state. Is that right?
We did. So one of our first goals was to reach out to every county in the state. And so we started with our county judges and scheduled meetings. And we started back in February. And it took us until June the 9th to get to all 75 counties. But it was a very educational experience. Like, I'm a lifelong Arkansan. I've never lived in any other state in my entire life. And this is the first time in my 40 plus years on this planet that I was able to actually see every part of Arkansas, sometimes more than once even. So even today, I've driven to Lake Village and back today to talk about broadband with the quorum court there. So we've got a really important message that we thought the best way to get it out is not through email, because we know we have a lot of people without access. It's not through Zoom meetings, because again, a lot of people may have access, but they don't have quality broadband service. So we're kind of a boots on the ground kind of operation, and we're out visiting people. And even next week, I'm on the road. Even though the road show's over, the road show still continues, because the counties need us to come back to explain to more people what's going on and why we need their help with this process.
Yeah, and I'm sure people are tired of Zoom meetings anyway, so it's probably good that you do those in person. What kind of things were you presenting to them, and what kind of folks attended? Was it community leaders, county leaders?
Yeah, so what we're talking about is, we're introducing, first of all, the Broadband Office. So we sit under the Department of Commerce here in the state of Arkansas, and, a lot of people don't even know we exist. So, our first message is, introducing ourselves and letting them know of the services that we provide here, and also, the plans that we're developing to eliminate the digital divide by 2028. That's our goal. We're also talking about affordability because my director, Glenn Howie, always says, if we build fiber to every single household in the state, if people can't afford it, well, what have we accomplished? So we're talking about what we can do to make the service more affordable for Arkansans. And then our last pillar for broadband and the Broadband Office is to increase the digital skills training level of our state. So we think there's about 70,000 people that lack basic digital skills. They're not able to, they turn on a computer and create an email address and things like that. So not only are we trying to get people access and we're going to make it affordable, but we need to make sure that everyone has the ability to use that service to better their lives and enrich the economy and grow, some of our counties that may be losing residents.
Mm-hmm. So was it a mixed group that attended? I mean, what were the size of the groups that you had?
Yeah, so it varied county by county. I always thought it was interesting, like our most populous counties kind of had the lower attendance, and our most rural counties that may have the smallest in the population count had the most people attend. And a lot of it had to do with they heard about broadband and the Broadband Office coming to town, and they don't have access. So
yeah.
we had a few meetings where I'll give you an example in Independence County. Every citizen that lived on a single road in the county came to our broadband meeting, and they all, introduced themselves by their name and their address. So we would be fully aware that they are unserved, and we're working closely with them and their county broadband committee to help find them a service provider, even to get service to their area. But we had we always invite librarians. We have a few state representatives and state senators who are very involved in this process and very interested. We like first responders because, broadband access is important to them, especially when their radios are not working in the valleys, and, the education system, obviously. And then we also include like the agriculture, just because farming is a very big industry here in Arkansas. And so much of farming is very technical now. The tractors have GPS capabilities and there's precision agriculture. So the Farm Bureau has been a really good partner with us here in the state. And they come to all of our meetings just about to talk about, the interests that the farmers have with the broadband access.
Mm-hmm. And I guess those populous or popular, I shouldn't say popular, the counties with a lot of population had broadband. So they're probably less interested in showing up, and like, just don't make it any worse would be my thought.
Exactly.
If I lived there. Yeah.
So, and then those counties, especially the ones, because we do have a couple that are almost completely fiber built counties, which is awesome. I mean, that's less work for us to do in those areas, but we still want to talk to them about the affordability side of it and definitely the digital skills side of it, because even though, like I said, everyone has awesome broadband and can watch Netflix, but if their grandmother or anybody, especially in our working class population, is not able to use a computer, they're going to get left behind.
Yeah. So how was the response? Did you guys learn anything as you went through and from various counties?
Oh, the response so far has been incredible. I think out of 75 counties, and mine, some of those we just went to in the last few weeks, but we have 30 broadband committees already set up. And we're going to spend the next, 6 weeks or so working on the remaining, 45 counties. Mm-hmm. There's one county, and I'll even give them a shout out, Carroll County, which is Berryville and Eureka Springs up in north central Arkansas. They are our shining stars, and they have their own website for their broadband committee. They've done postcard mailers, and they're very involved because it's really important to them. They don't have good access in that part of the state, and that's a very high tourism area. And they understand that without that broadband access, the tourists don't stay as long as that they would like them to stay. So we're working on building up the momentum. Like I said, I took a road trip to Southeast Arkansas this morning, and that's exactly what we're doing, explaining to more people, what we need from them and how we can get the ball rolling with these county committees, because their input is going to be extremely important to our BEAD planning as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of momentum. In fact, we just had the broadband map come out recently, and now NTIA is going to be making their announcement soon, here in the next week or so, I guess, on funds.
10 more days, Rick.
Yeah.
10 more days.
10 more days. You're counting it down. So,
yes.
So the second iteration of the FCC, the National Broadband Map, is out now. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that, I mean, you've had a chance to look at it. Do you think it's fairly accurate? Is there anything you can do about it at this point? I guess not.
So even if we could do something, the timeline is kind of passed as it relates to how the funding is going to be calculated. So June the 30th, like we were saying, 10 more days is the date that the NTIA is supposed to release to all of the states the amount of BEAD funding we're going to receive. And unfortunately for us, between the first iteration of the map and where we are today, we actually lost about 50,000 locations. Either came off the map or were challenged successfully by service providers and what else. So our funding dollar, estimation has kind of come down by $500 million. But don't worry, if you are in Arkansas, that we still think we're going to get enough money to complete the build to every household and business in the state. So and probably still have a little bit money left over. So we're not discouraged with the new map, but we still think there can be a lot of improvements to it. And so we'll be setting out here probably in September to do our own statewide broadband map to develop our own project areas.
Mm-hmm. So you have a shout out here from Charlotte Dial, who I know you know well. She says, "Hi, Laurie."
Hi, Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte works for Waco Video, where Laurie spent so many years. So, so it's good that you think you can build out everywhere. So what do you think, there's going to be some challenging areas, I'm sure. Do you have an idea of how much you're going to be able to do with fiber? I guess there's going to be some areas that you can't do that.
Yeah, so we're looking at doing a 90 to 95% fiber build. We think there's definitely enough money in the pot for that. We haven't identified our high cost areas yet, but we have a plan kind of in place. I'm not going to say it's solid yet, but we do have a plan to get fiber to as many people as possible. And, there's no specific area I can really name right now that may not get the fiber, just because we want to look at, what else is in play, like who are neighboring service providers and, what else we can do because we really like to do fiber just because of, the technology proofness of it. It's not the right word, but
yeah, future proof.
We'd rather, future proof. That's the word I was trying to think of. But the wireless internet is an option as well for those people, and we'll be considering that too, especially when it comes to those super high cost areas.
Yeah, have you guys been already kind of knowing where those areas are? Do you have kind of a head start on that and knowing which ones are going to be difficult?
Not so much. Back to those broadband committees, we're going to rely on them because it seems like a lot of the areas that we felt like were unserved are actually more underserved. And the way the NTIA has written out the BEAD program, we kind of have to focus on those unserved populations first. So if you have service and it's less than 100 by 20 speed, we're going to get to you, but our first task at hand was going to be to identify all the unserved, and then work towards, getting to the underserved beyond that. So we'd really like to do, smaller project areas than we had considered in the past. And, if there's underserved within that same area, but they'll get taken care of. But right now it's identifying those unserved areas, and they're still out there, believe it or not.
Yeah. And so what about middle mile infrastructure? Because I know there's certain states that's a real problem for, states like Alaska, for example, where there's just so much middle mile infrastructure that's probably needed. Hawaii, another example. But, Arkansas, you guys are probably somewhere in the middle as far as needs for that. Have you guys considered that? Do you think you might have to use maybe some of your BEAD dollars for that?
We might have to, and that's something that's on our list. The Diamond State Networks, which is run by the electric co-ops here in Arkansas, they're building their own middle mile infrastructure that is going to basically make a ring around the entire state and crisscross the middle, and that's going to be awesome when that gets lit up. Yeah, so they're way far ahead of the game, I feel like. And I think a lot of the service providers in the state and the broadband office too, just to be honest, is going to depend on that network. But yes, in talking, especially in these meetings that we've done in the counties, we've had service providers come to the meeting and talk about how, their access point to transport data is in Memphis, but they're, in north central Arkansas in the mountains. So they're transporting it, 300 miles through the mountains. And that's why they have to charge, an X number amount of money for their service. So we recognize that middle mile has a direct impact on the affordability of service down to the customer level. And if we can help, and use, if that's using BEAD dollars or however we can help to the service providers to get their costs down, to help them bring the cost down to the customer is going to be on our list for sure.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have participated in ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, and you've used, as a lot of states have, some of those funds for broadband. So how has that worked out? Has that helped you learn maybe, because that's obviously similar to BEAD and the money's going to the state and then the state subgrants that. So how is that working and what have you guys learned from that?
So Arkansas has used literally every dollar.
Okay.
I wish I could say for all the plans, but no, but the money that was allocated to broadband, we have passed on and granted out to we've granted out every dollar we've been given so far. So state and local recovery funds are all in process right now. Those grants, I think, started, I want to say the middle of last year. And then we recently awarded all of our capital project funds out at the beginning of this year. So those grants were applied for back in October, and then the legislature signed off on everything between December and February of this year. So we've gotten those agreements out and getting signatures on those now. So you'll see even more service providers with shovels in the ground all across the state actually doing projects that are federally funded awards.
That's fantastic. So, that's going to get put to use sooner, which is great. So do you have any funds left from ARPA that you could maybe use toward matching funds, or you guys have used pretty much everything?
We have pretty much used, we've used everything that was allocated to our office so far. So, if something comes back to us, maybe unused funds, that would be awesome. And we'd love to, issue those out in a different way later. But so far, my lights just went out. That's where we're at.
I was going to ask you. Yeah, it went dark there. All right. So, wow, that was quick.
On a sensor.
Yeah, I thought it was on my end. That's funny. So yeah, that's good news. And everything that obviously you're doing through ARPA is just one less location that you're going to have to do through BEAD. So
exactly.
So you guys now, again, we're getting down to, like you said, 10 days before the NTIA announces how much Arkansas is going to get. And I think you guys, about $1 billion is what is expected, which is pretty nice. A lot of states are barely getting over their 100 million, but they don't have the needs that somebody like Arkansas or Georgia or other states would have. Right, so, so that's coming. So I'm assuming you guys are in the middle of your 5-year plan and well into that. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of our 5-year plan development. We should have our draft available for public comment. July 21st is the day that we have circled on our calendar. So we're about 80% done right now. It's kind of been handed out to a couple of advisors to see if there's anything we're missing and making it pretty. All that fun stuff is going on right now. But we should have our 5-year plan ready to go, like I said, towards the end of July. It's not due till the end of August. So we're making sure that we have everything in there. We're not trying to submit early or anything like that. There's about 5 states who have released their 5-year plans already. So we're definitely taking a look at what they've published for public comment and, taking some notes and seeing, hearing what the comments are on their plans too, to make sure that our plan covers the needs of all Arkansans and meets all of the requirements. We're also working on our digital opportunity and skills plan. That's going to be released towards the end of September because the due date for our digital opportunity plan is not until November. So you're going to see a lot more stuff coming out of our office, asking for people to read some documents and let us know what you think. And please give us comments. If there's something that we've left out or if we've overstated coverage or something, this is your time to, interact with us and to help us correct our documents before we submit them to the federal government and ask for our funding.
Mm-hmm. Not to put you on the spot here with your memory, but so the timing or timeline for these things, so like you said, you got your plan and you're going to put that up for public comment. And then there's a lot that's got to go on between you and the NTIA, and I guess you and I guess maybe subgrantees. There's challenge and communities. There's challenge process. Is that right? That all takes place.
Oh yeah. So Luckily, the 5-year plan that we're going to be submitting in August is not going to go under as much scrutiny as our initial proposal, which is the whole BEAD program basically in writing. And that's not due, thankfully, until December. The 5-year plan is kind of an outline of a few of those sections. And then in December, when we submit the whole proposal, you'll see things about the challenge process and the grant process and how the Arkansas Rural Connect grant program is going to be changing. So it's going to be version 3. And you'll see some changes from us as it relates to that. But again, all of this stuff is going to get released before it gets submitted to the NTIA. So you'll have the opportunity to comment and offer your own suggestions on how we can improve.
And then when do you start to determine like who your subgrantees are? I'm assuming you're already talking to folks as you're making these rounds to the counties and whatnot. You said you talked to ISPs, but when does all that take place where you're making kind of your decisions on who's going to do a particular area?
Yeah. So our timeline, just to kind of summarize, but it really kicks off this fall where the first step is going to be we have to create the Arkansas State Broadband map with locations, kind of like the FCC map, but we're hoping we can get ours way more accurate than the FCC just because we're going to lean on our service providers and also our county broadband committees to help us identify those unserved and underserved households. The second phase of that, and this actually has to get approved by the NTIA before we can do anything, is we have to create a challenge process. So we're going to release our map, and then we'll also release a challenge process to the map so that if you disagree with our findings, you'll have the opportunity to submit that challenge and we'll process those in a timely manner. Once all of that process is done, and we're thinking that's going to be probably September, October, we'll be able to get our project areas drawn for those unserved and underserved households and then release those probably first quarter of 2024 and have a grant round going.
And so you guys know now, obviously, with the broadband map that's out there, which has broadband serviceable locations and then what's covered in those broadband serviceable locations as far as ISPs that cover those areas. But we know there's still, as you look at this and you look at your map, there's probably going to be some areas that maybe it's like, you know what, this really should be an area that's served. This particular location should be served and it's not showing as a location on the broadband map or those kinds of things. So you still have leeway, right, on doing something with those locations?
Unfortunately, if the location is missing from the map altogether, then we can't use BEAD funds to build to it.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's not on this latest, greatest version of the FCC map, then it's not counted as a BEAD serviceable location. Now, of course, if we have a service provider who's building to the house on the left and the house on the right, then we would hope that they would pick up the house in the middle. But, there's going to be conversations about that and how we can, figure out what's the best interest between the service provider and us. And maybe the 25% that the service provider has to put in for a grant covers those, newly discovered households that magically appear when they actually roll a truck down that street.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that. I figured if the NTIA or really FCC and CostQuest missed some locations, that it'd be like, okay, well, you discovered that. I mean, I can understand if there's something brand new, that maybe pops up like a new neighborhood or something like that. I didn't realize that. So,
yeah, we spent a lot of time after the first version of the map came out trying to find, working with the state GIS office actually to find, those missing houses. And I think we submitted probably 100,000, I want to say, to the FCC to have them show up on the map. So there's been some progress made there, but again, I think the map is a very fluid thing, and there's always going to be room for improvement on it.
Yeah, it's even moving forward, once it's perfect today, you're going to have new neighborhoods pop up. So it's going to be changing, as time goes on. But hopefully, at some point, it will be not in a too far future, I should say. It'll be accurate with where everything is. And it's unfortunate you have to worry about spots that are not on the map now. That's just one more challenge I guess you've got.
Yeah,
so
it's been brought up, I think, in a lot of our county meetings too about new neighborhoods and who's going to cover those. And unfortunately, we're not going to have a say in that. It's going to be up to the community basically to recruit a service provider to get to those new neighborhoods.
Yeah, I guess as you get closer to having all areas served, especially if it's you're putting more fiber in the ground, middle mile infrastructure, and then you've got more neighborhoods that are have got fiber, then it will be a little bit easier for service providers to make a case to edge out their network, I guess, or extend out in those new areas, hopefully. Unless it's like somewhere like they build a neighborhood on the top of a mountain that nothing was there before. That's a challenge.
They'll have to work with their county judge on that.
Yeah, figure out what they're going to do. So as you guys are preparing to talk with potential subgrantees, probably already talking to them, any advice for any internet service providers in the state or that are considering, like maybe a electric co-op or a municipality, anybody that's not providing service or is providing service, recommendations for what they should be doing now and where to go from here?
Right. So if you have any interest and you have not reached out to us to this point, and please reach out to me. We're working on an ISP specific roundtable discussion because we want to hear from those providers and especially those who have received grants from us in the past, their thoughts on the program, what worked well, what doesn't work, how can we improve for the ARC grant program 3.0 basically. We have a clean slate. And we have a grants manager that just came on board actually at the end of May. So we have a person in our office whose job is solely going to be redeveloping the grant program. So we want to hear from you. And I definitely we haven't set a date for that roundtable yet, but it's coming, I promise. If you are interested in becoming a provider, we can definitely give you some guidance and get you in touch with people who have done this before. So, like I said, the Broadband Office is here for you. Just reach out to us at any time with any broadband questions. We talk to citizens every day. We talk to legislators every day. And we definitely talk to service providers every day as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Mm-hmm. And what about other broadband offices that might be watching this as you said you've kind of looking at some 5-year plans of some others, but there might be some things that you've learned as you've gone through this that others might benefit from. Anything you can think of? Any advice there?
Yeah, so I think the best thing that we've done to date is to make this road trip and take the time to go talk to people in their environments even. I know a lot of states are doing like regional listening sessions and they're doing focus groups and certain areas, but just us like showing up at the courthouse and putting a sign out saying come see the broadband office for an hour, we've learned so much. And I think the people are way more comfortable sharing their stories because we took the time to come visit them. Like in a county, I want to say it was in Montgomery County or in Scott County out in western Arkansas, they told us about how they didn't even get wired line telephone service until like 1990 something. And their hesitation was that they don't believe that all this is true. Like, we've heard that people are going to build the phone service, but here it is. It took them, 50 years to build it to us. Well, how on earth is the broadband office going to do this? And, so I think having that personal interaction and especially building those relationships on a county level is going to be to our benefit because we know we have enough money to get this job done. And we're going to, in some cases, almost bring miracles to these communities that have, no internet and people are moving away as a result of that. And now they'll be able to either keep their residents or even attract new ones who want, a slower pace of life. So definitely just do the community outreach. It's hard work. It's time consuming, but it's going to be a big reward in the end, I feel like.
Yeah. I guess that's really where you're going to learn, like, as you mentioned, I mean, the closer you get to the community is where you're going to learn what they need, which areas are unserved. You're going to learn what your challenges are. So in addition to getting feedback or providing them information, you're getting feedback from them on that, right?
Right. Yeah. And I'll tell you, and then it's not just the first visit, it's those second and third interactions that I think are really what's going to pay off for us because, we didn't just fly through one afternoon at 2:00 and, head back to Little Rock, but here we are, at 9:00 in the morning at a quorum court meeting. And next week we're launching the Arkansas Broadband Leaders Network, which is going to be our county committee members, give them a place where they can all meet each other and share ideas. And I think coordinating something like that too kind of it reiterates the fact that we're here for them, and if we all work together, we can solve this problem.
Yep. Well, it's it was great having you here as a guest. So it's good to learn what Arkansas is doing. And I'm sure a lot of states are going through the same exact things right now in various states of readiness. So it's an important topic. It's a historic amount of funding that's coming. So you guys got a lot of work to do.
Well, you're very busy, that's for sure.
I'm sure you are. And I know the internet service providers and those that want to be ISPs in your state are going to be very busy. And I'm assuming they're going to turn to you guys maybe for some assistance at some point on maybe understanding. You're going to have what you require from them. What is that, by the way? You're going to require a proposal from them. Is that right?
Yes. So we're going to, we'll be the ones who draw the project areas, kind of like we did this last round of grants, but the service providers need to stand down. They're going to be way smaller than what we presented the last grant round. So there'll be no countywide project areas. Mm-hmm. We're also, we're going to be doing more like webinars, to kind of explain, what our requirements are for the BEAD program. Like, you still have to have a letter of credit. You still have to match 25% of the award. Mm-hmm. So, of the project amount. So there's going to be all of those things. And as we get our grant program developed, and especially the challenge process developed, because I know the service providers are going to be really involved in that as well, mm-hmm. We'll have way more educational sessions. And we'd love to do another connectivity summit like we did a couple of years ago in Hot Springs. So something else, that we're working on, and we'll probably have a date for that in the next few weeks. So just stay tuned. Your broadband office is here for you too.
Great. And you had sent me a link to a survey, which I did put in the description of this video, along with a link to your website, and they can see your website there as well. So what was that survey that you sent me? You want to explain what that is?
Yeah, so part of our digital skills planning has to do with yet another survey. We know how much everyone loves surveys, especially from the Broadband Office, but we're trying to take a survey of as many Arkansans as possible, and it's asking questions about their broadband access, affordability, and their digital skills level, our 3 pillars. So, do you have internet at your house? What kind of devices do you have at your house? How much do you pay? And is it in your budget? Some people pay a lot of money for internet and they necessarily can't afford it, but it's a necessity. So they make do. So we want to hear about that. And then it also asks questions like, are you comfortable paying your bills online? Because I know there's a lot of people who aren't. They don't want to put their credit card or their checking account information in a computer. They don't know where it's going. So we're just trying to gauge, people's comfort level, and then also hear their concerns or maybe even their victories when it comes to obtaining affordable broadband access at home. So please share our survey with as many people as possible. We're trying to reach all 4 corners of the state and all 75 counties. And we've posted it on our social media this week, and you'll see way more about that because we are taking responses until July the 15th. So.
Great. Okay. All right. So again, that's linked in the description for anyone that lives in Arkansas and wants to take that survey. You can see it right there, or share that with someone that you know that does. And don't forget about Zcorum. What we do, if you're an internet service provider in Arkansas or anywhere that happens to be watching this, there are lots of things that we can help with, especially if you're new to the internet business. That's kind of how we got started back in the 90s, mid 90s, helping people get in the internet business with dial-up, starting with that, and then cable modem service, kind of like you had with Waco, and then obviously fiber. So we can help there. And there's some things specifically I know in the notice of funding opportunity, for example, cybersecurity and having to be compliant with the NIST framework. We can help with that. We can help you if you are not sure what that is and what you need to do. And we can actually help you with the technical parts of that, because we have a Security Operations Center as a service that we've launched. In other words, the intrusion detection software, the experts to monitor that 24/7. So you see our website there. You can check us out. We also provide help desk services, subscribers and user support, CALIA if you need to be compliant with that, CGNAT if you need IPv4 conservation or need to get IPv4 addresses and don't want to get one for every subscriber, we can help with that. So check us out on the web there. You see our email address and our phone number as well. And you see Laurie's contact information there. So folks can reach out to you, Laurie, if they have any questions on what they need to be doing. I'm assuming that could be anybody You talk to anybody and anybody from a
Yes.
subscriber to an ISP, is that right?
Yes, we talk to everyone.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Go ahead. You heard it here. Just make sure it's a good reason to call. Don't call Laurie to bother her or anything like that. Make sure that you have a good question. So Laurie, I appreciate it. Thanks again so much for being with us today. This was very informative, and hopefully for those that are watching, I know it was for me. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rick. Arkansas, we've got a lot on our plate, and we've got a big project ahead of us, but it's going to be an awesome thing when it's completed in 2028. So stay tuned.
It's exciting. Well, I'll look back on this someday and go, you remember when people didn't have broadband? Now everybody does. Remember those times? Kind of like back. Remember when people didn't have electricity or telephone service? So it's great. It's very exciting. So thanks everyone for joining us. Again, if you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified when we're live or when we post a video. And if you like this video, if you give me a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. Laurie would appreciate it since she was my special guest today on this particular video. So thank you, folks. I appreciate it. And you will see me tomorrow for Broadband Deployment News at some point during the day. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.